hey, I'm going to get some rounds that, for me, maybe I need a little bit of break. They're a little bit lighter and they're more me working with the other person versus, oh, I'm going to pick that person where, we really get to butt heads and that's a lot of fun. And I'm trying hard to win, and they might be doing that for me where they're actually kind of letting me work, or we're just, and that's nice. So, I think getting the mix.
What do you like? Hello, and welcome to another episode of
Jiu-Jitsu Ponderings. My name's Lauren.
And I'm David.
All right, let's get into it with our rapid fire questions.
Sweet, let's do it. Lauren.
What is some media that you've been enjoying lately? This could be books, movies, TV shows, comic books, visual art, AR
Porn?
lands. Probably not, because we got to keep it like PG-13 or something.
Good, because I don't watch it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Two things.
Okay.
One, I'll give a shout out to Dave Meyer from the Aegis Warrior Lab. One, because I know him, but two, like, he's getting a lot of really interesting guests. Like, he just had Frank Shamrock.
I'm curious about that one, because I think, did we read Frank Shamrock's book? I borrowed it from you. Yeah, his story is super interesting, and he at least he writes fairly well on it, and it seems like he probably speaks fairly well on it.
He's very articulate.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very perpetual white belt like mentality, and it's very interesting. He's very articulate, he's very smart, and he takes a lot of the learnings from jiu-jitsu and the fighting world, and like part of his goal is like to get to walk away with little to no damage, like nice. long lasting damage. And he's he works with entrepreneurs, or he himself is an entrepreneur, and then he does like executive coaching and that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. And there's been like multiple other, Dave Meyer like will do like monologues where he's talking about like a topic that he is like passing along wisdom from
he might have a story to share that has a specific
and those are really interesting, and they're like little on the shorter, not short, but they're on the shorter side, and they're usually like well done. And then he also does interviews of like really well-known people, especially in the jiu-jitsu world, but also like, eventually outside of that. And it's just really cool to hear a little bit more about someone's path and everything else like that. And so like, that's been cool. So especially when I'm like driving a long distance, whatever, I'll throw it on and just kind of listening on. Or when I was putting together that armoire, I was just listening to Frank Shamrock's podcast, mostly just keep myself from losing my mind, because that armoire is way too complicated.
Thank you for putting it together, David.
You're welcome.
Very excited.
I'm excited too. The other thing is I'm listening to a fantasy book called Dungeon Crawler Carl.
It's very popular. I think it's actually in the top 10 pretty consistently for audiobooks right now. At least it has been for the past
like all audiobooks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Or that might be, maybe not all audiobooks.
I can't imagine
audiobooks on Audible or something like that. But yeah, literally all
categories. Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's extremely popular right now.
Well, for good reason. I think it's I'm pretty far in the second book of the series. I think there's 3. There might be more. There's definitely 3.
I think there are. Yeah. There's
whatever.
More. Yeah.
So I'm a good part way through the second one. I could see it fizzling out later on, because any of these like get a little bit crazy, but it's like it's very interesting. There's a lot of like silly humor, and part of the storyline, I won't get into it, but part of the storyline is aliens basically create a dungeon that they force humans into, and they have to like keep going down, and like a lot of them die, blah blah blah. But throughout there is sprinkling of like pop culture references, but they're like twisted, but I don't know, it's just really funny. There's some really
technically cute... a LitRPG, which I don't feel like I don't entirely understand what that definition encompasses?
Yeah, maybe. Not like turn-based role playing, obviously, but like
that element is in there.
We'll think of it as like Beast
like
Games
real world
or
Beast
more,
Games
for more
aliens,
like Beast Games or what is that one where like the people would die?
Squid Games.
Squid Games. It's more like Squid Games, but like on crazy amount of scale. They're under the world. They're like they build this dungeon like with like 18 floors or whatever, and along the way there's like an AI that like you have to kill these things. You gain experience like a role-playing game. I think those are the elements. You have loot. You have different skills that you can, and then like after when you go to the third level, you can choose to change your race, like your species. Interesting. And you're also your class.
From your description, it sounds like you're not mentioning the most important part that has captured my interest, which is that there is a cat.
The cat is the
Princess Donut.
Princess Donut.
See, I've never read it, but I know there's a cat named Princess Donut, and this sounds
she's
fantastic.
She's sassy, and she's a previous show cat.
Nice.
And so she has there's
that element sounds genius.
Yeah.
So you can
she has a pet. So she became at the beginning like she had something that turned her into a crawler. That's what they're called. The crawlers are going down the dungeon. And so she's not technically a pet. She's her own crawler. So she's able to level up and she has spells and has like little like bracelets, and she has a tiara.
Is very Dungeons and Dragons LitRPG-esque.
Even better is Princess Donut has a pet, Mongo, which is a velociraptor.
Sick.
And it starts as like a little small one, and as it gains levels, it gets bigger.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So,
nice.
And Mongo is exactly what you would expect as a velociraptor, but it's basically like a dog where it gets super excited and causes general mayhem. Nice. But she's training him too. And it's hilarity ensues.
I do have a new theory. So one of my...
You should listen to it.
Yeah, I should. Yeah. Princess Donut is definitely,
she gets annoying sometimes. Yeah, but it's like it plays into.
Yeah.
Well, I can read
Dungeon Crawler. All right, my turn.
Any media that you're enjoying lately, Lauren?
Yes, I am enjoying. I'll say two kind of quickly and without too much description. I'm enjoying Ball Pit or Ball X Pit. And it is a game, it's available for like $11 or something on PS5 and Xbox and Switch and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to describe what it is because it's basically Breakaway, but with actual enemies that you are breaking away in terms of like ball, paddle, shoot balls, etc. You just get really fun combinations, and it's nice seeing lots of lasers explode on the screen and destroy everything. That's where I'll leave it at. Go check out Ball Pit. I'm not going to say any more because a hard game to describe. The other thing that I'm enjoying, and it's interesting playing, is Split Fiction with the Child, which is a cooperative couch co-op game specifically made for couch co-op. So that's cool, where you can play it side by side.
Feels like those the days of couch co-op are waning. Like they're few and far between. Yeah. Maybe they're starting to make a little bit of a resurgence, especially in like I don't want to necessarily call it an indie game, but kind of like in the smaller budget games. They're like, oh, how do we differentiate? Let's do couch co-op because it used to be like couch co-op was the only option. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you could do it online and whatever. And now it's like, okay, some of them you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just from a development standpoint sounds easier of like, hey, we're going to make this for online play and we're going to assume everyone has their PC, and making it so that you can do both online play and couch co-op is just kind of difficult. So, and I think there are a lot more options for PC than we're seeing for consoles for whatever reason.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So it is cool to see it as like a AA title. I have a lot of problems with the writing. I don't really understand why it won so many writing awards. That kind of bothers me. Whatever. I don't know. There's just like, it feels a little bit lazy, like, to be like totally frank.
If anyone is a writer,
what's this weird rift thing? I don't know. I think it's this. Oh yeah, it must be that. We're not gonna like touch it and explode. It's totally gonna do exactly what we just said it does. Like, it's lazy. Come on. Like, have some evidence occur in the situation that the thing that you've never encountered in your life before and not in the world before is, you know, what you think it is. It makes me mad.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, the game's fun.
But still, yeah, gameplay is pretty fun and, you know, cool if you're looking for a game to play with like your significant other or friend or like, you know, you're probably like preteen or teenage kid or whatever. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. On to jiu-jitsu related questions. All right. Would you say, this is a question for each of us, but would you say that it is harder to watch your spouse compete or compete yourself?
I think they're different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I get more attached to outcome for you and like your matches.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I get more, the nervousness is different. Like I get more nervous for your match, especially if they're big ones, you know, like opens, like less so, but like especially big ones, it's often because like I can't do anything, you know, whereas like I'm nervous for matches for myself, like all of them, but it's like I can go into like my mantras, I can go into like my zone, and I know at the end of the day, like once I step on the mat, like I'm in control. But like with you, it's not, and like I know that you take losses kind of hard and stuff, and so like I don't want you to feel that pain, and I know that like it really means a lot when you're able to like produce good jiu-jitsu on in competition, and so like I want to see that come to fruition for you. So I think from that perspective it's harder to watch you, although like I like to, and I like to encourage and cheer and coach you and that kind of stuff. I think like for competing myself, there's a difference, and it's difficult in different ways.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if one is harder than the other, but certain components are certainly much harder.
Yeah, I would have, my immediate answer, like the quick version would be, it's way easier for me to watch you compete than for me to compete myself. Like I'm not really worried for you, and I'm generally pretty confident in your abilities to execute and to like, you have a lot of good competition success. It's not always gonna be that, like, you know, but I'm just not like worried for you. When I do notice if it feels like something unjust is happening, like if you're not getting an advantage or if you're not getting points that I think you should have got, I get way more mad for you than I probably do for myself. But that's also because if I'm competing, I'm in the moment. Like it's like, you know, you gotta just goldfish memory it.
And you have someone else that's like having, like I'm gonna be yelling for that too.
Exactly.
Most of the time.
The moment I think of is in the Nogi Worlds open class finals. I was so mad for you. I was losing my mind because you weren't getting any advantages. They wouldn't give you any points that I think you had
I didn't get any points. You're talking about the finals?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing was I had a Choi bar entry.
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't. The second time I switched to the Kimura grip and was coming on the back, and I had chest to back connection, but I didn't have any hooks yet.
Yeah.
And then I fell off or whatever, and I didn't get an advantage for that back take.
Yeah.
And then he does like a cartwheel pass that I tracked the whole time with my feet.
Yeah.
And like he didn't expose anything
to side control
at all, and he got an advantage.
Yeah. That I was losing my mind.
I remember our buddy David Strand was watching, and he was like, "Yeah, you yell at him, Lauren, after," because he's like, you could hear it on the IBJJS stream.
I was so angry,
but I ended up on Lauren.
Yeah, so. No, that's what I was, and in that moment, I'm like, you have to just submit him. Like they're not gonna give you anything, and so, and you of course are going for that already. You know, I'm just But yeah, but generally, I think
I share that. I think like,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
but
totally.
it's like, it's also somewhat like the coach's job to like, to advocate for those things.
You can't get mad about it in the moment, because then you're not
and
focused
you also
on,
can't say
talk,
anything.
can't say
You can just clear it up.
Yeah.
You can talk to the ref, but you can't question a call.
Interesting.
So you can say something like, "Hey, my belt's taut," or whatever. Like there are certain things you can say or request from the ref, and there's sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
And
can you say your fingers, like, so there was one time that my hand had disappeared in my sleeve because the chick was doing it. Yeah, and
you can point out, you can be like, "Hey, ref, my hands," whatever. Those are totally fine because you're like, there's not a malfunction, but there's like something that's impeding. But you can't say, "Hey, did I get 2 points?" Like that should have been 2. You can't argue. And so,
that makes a lot of sense.
and sometimes I toe the line a little bit in certain spots, but it's always from like, "Hey, can you review that?"
Yeah.
You're not supposed to tell you, but sometimes I get it, and that's happened.
Yeah.
Like there's one where Master Worlds 2023, the second or third match, I had gotten into saddle legally, and then I had pushed up into a knee bar like here.
That's the one I stole from you.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And
it's like a sideways knee bar, but like you're not hipping into the side of the
you're
pushing it into the side of your thigh.
It's a direct on knee, regular knee bar, but the application is weird because I actually had, I forget what they call it. It's not full saddle because I have my foot hooked inside the saddle too. It's a little bit different. And I was like, oh yeah, I got that. And so he disqualified me, or initially disqualified me, because it was, he thought it was. And I was like, wait, that's legal. Can you please review? And I was like I had asked, I was like, was it the entry that you had issues with, or the finish? He's like, the finish, because the entry was totally fine, but I just wanted to make sure. And he's like, and he got a review. It took a long time, and they finally were like, nope, he tapped in.
I was worried. Yeah,
I was worried, but luckily this is the year that they instilled the camera reviews, so everything was good. And then I proceeded to make the finals. Went through a gauntlet to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, who is more likely to be training at 60?
At 60 years old, I am. I only say that because I think that I have fewer health issues than you, and I think that it's also that
not mental.
That's the thing. But like the mental issues, if I'm not training, it's bad. And so I think that I'll be more likely. I think I can envision a world where we're both training at 60 though. So I think if it's like likelihood, there's a little bit playing in my favor.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
I think that there's more, and I don't say this like as necessarily a negative. Your mostly, but maybe a little. I don't know. Your identity and your, like you're saying, your happiness, maybe not happiness, but like your contentedness and whatnot is very intimately entwined with being able to do jujitsu. Not necessarily compete, because I think sometimes you step back and other times you're in it and whatnot. Whereas like I kind of have like a principle where, although it would be very difficult, I should be able to quit tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like if something were of significant health issue or whatever, like it's something that like it's very valuable to me. I like doing it and stuff like that. And I've changed my mind a little bit on that. But I feel like I can gain satisfaction from physical pursuits that are just jujitsu, although it's my favorite avenue. And I think that you, like, it's very clearly like a very strong special interest of yours.
Yes.
Whereas like I don't love jujitsu as much as you do. I enjoy it. I think it's wonderful. I think there's a lot of positive aspects to it. But I tend to agree. I think we still both probably are likely to be training at that age.
Yeah.
Barring anything too significant or whatever, but we'll see.
Yeah. Who knows? It's interesting.
It'll be episode.
Oh my God.
I don't know. what is it? 21 years away. So episode 1568 or something like that. I don't know.
Nice. Awesome. That's hilarious.
I
We'll
don't know.
see.
I don't know what it actually
Yeah.
be.
It is wild where the future that you envision that could be very likely still could be wildly different than what actually occurs.
Yeah,
maybe not even wildly, but just different in ways
that
it's like didn't imagine. Who knows?
Every time I have a really hard time being like, oh, what's your 5-year plan or 3-year plan and stuff like that, because especially in the last like 10 years or whatever, each year has been so different than if you would have asked me this time last year, what would your life look like? It's like, we're married. I'm not at Google. Like, there's like a lot of things that are very different than I would have, necessarily pictured. So, yeah.
He thought you would be running off on an island single and
no, gross.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'd be very sad if I wasn't with you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. All right.
Now that are very short rapid fire questions.
Super short.
Jesus
Yes.
Christ. How's training going?
Training's going well. It's interesting that I'm back in the gi a lot more, and I am enjoying it. It's nice to be playing lasso guard. De La Riva is a lot easier. The berimboloing is just a lot easier. So those things are cool, and it's funny to feel that switch over. One thing that was fun that I was trying out today was I told myself someone was playing sit-up guard on me, and they're reaching for my collar, and they have really strong grips. Their grips are really hard to break. I think they used to rock climb a little bit. And I told myself, I was like, I'm gonna go for it. And I tried to flying armbar them twice. And I didn't kick them in the face, which was great. So that was my accomplishment. And I'm glad I didn't full flying armbar them. I did the hand plant and then shoot the legs over. So I think it was a little more controlled, but it was pretty sick to go for. So I think I'm gonna tell myself to try to keep building confidence, and I probably will just try it on dudes where if I need them in the face, they'd be okay, so yeah. It'll be fine. I think that what the main thing that I observed is that it was hard. I couldn't enter my knee into the space under their arm, and so I think that might be hard to occupy if they're not really open to begin with, but that might be okay. The adjustment might be, I was telling myself too, my joke was, I'm Peter Frank. And so I think, it might be good, watch a few highlights from him and just try to get my hips to the shoulder and connect there, and don't worry too much about the legs. I think if I can close that distance and have their arm along my body, then the leg positioning will probably follow. Maybe kicking my top leg over their head will be more important than connecting my shin or my knee or whatever to their ribs under their armpit. So we'll see. But it was fun to go for it a couple times. Yeah. What about you?
I went up to Seattle on last Friday and then went to Higa Machado seminar, and then after was Dave Meyer's coral belt ceremony. So I had alluded, I think last that I was going to it. So it was like seminar, the ceremony, and then open training. And like the seminar was cool. It was like good hearing some of the stories about how, like, not some of the moves were like necessarily like invented, but kind of, and like how at least Hagen like first it got exposed to it, and then it's like, oh, like teach me, like, and then it's interesting where I think he has a kind of a similar like game to you, in that he's like, okay, I need to see it and then like drill it and really incorporate it and find all the nuances to it. And he's like, I would go to his place and like train for a year just to learn this thing. Obviously he's doing other things, but like really like honing in on that. And so there are games that are not my game. It was like Spider and then Spider Lasso and like Closed Guard Armbar, which are not like my game at all, but it was cool to like explore, and it was good tidbits and stuff like that, and I can like incorporate that. And then the ceremony for Dave was just really nice, just having people acknowledge and be stoked on. And there are black belts, so many like tons of black belts, which was really cool. And it's special seeing someone get their coral belt, because yeah, you don't have to do anything in particular. It's not you check off these boxes. Besides, like, you're still training and you're still doing jiu-jitsu after I think 31 years as a black belt. You get to a black belt, and then you got to put in 31 years of still being active, And like, he has been very active. He still competes. Like, he just won Nogi World Championship for his age group and stuff. And so like, it's really inspiring. And I know that he like wrestled with like one that's like, it's a clear thing that you are old. And he's like, but it's also this level of, I didn't do anything to earn that. And I was like, you did a hard thing for 31 years after you got your black belt. Yeah. Like, that is something. Yeah. Like, and it was really interesting. I think that there was like an epiphany moment when we were coming back from the airport, where I'm like, you did a hard thing for a long time. That is an achievement. And he's like, it's making me think, like, because the people in his life are the people that stay training. And so he's like, he forgets about the other 999 people that disappeared off into life, for one reason or another. And so it's just, it's really cool. It's a special moment. It's, there's only very few non-Brazilian coral belts. There's only a few coral belts, period. And there's a baby. And then what was really cool too, also after, is like, there's live rounds, and a lot of times when I go to like new gyms and stuff like that, it's like, I'll get some rolls in, but maybe maybe I don't get that many, like, people like kind of scatter, and I'll get some people that are excited or whatever. I don't know, maybe.
I think that it's also hard when there's a lot of gyms where they say, hey, you don't ask someone above you to roll.
Yeah. It's also like, some of it's like they're not like even making eye contact too, or not. This was like, people were lining up to roll with me.
Yeah, that's why.
And yeah, it was really different. It was very, very different. It was really cool. People were like, they knew that I was Dave's like friend, training partner coming up, and they had talked me up nicely and stuff like that. And like, I had someone, come in like, hey, and then like there's just a line, and I needed to compete the next day, so I needed to not go too crazy. But I was also like, I don't get this experience that often, where people like want to like roll with me and stuff. And
one thing that I forgot to mention was that happened today that I very much enjoyed. All these things happened today, so I'm a little recency bias for this week. But at the Meow seminar, he opened, I think you were still getting ready, but you did manage to catch these, with some passing drills where you made grips, and then
I saw you do that.
Yeah, you saw me do it. Oh, so sick. I felt very cool. You forward rolled over your shoulder with the grips, and then you back from like a knee shield half guard, and then you backwards rolled into side control, and then you kept the grips, you walked around, you did it again. And I've actually been having the kids do it as a challenge drill. And this is now a side note. What's cool about showing it to the kids as a challenge drill is they think it's really fun. The sensation of doing this movement, they have the same reaction to doing the inversion drill, where you roll back and forth around someone's legs to learn how to invert. But there's just something fun about rolling and doing something that feels like it looks pretty cool. And so today, so that's the side note, is that it's kind of cool that they rise to that challenge, So today I was training with my friend, and I was in the position, and I'm like, I'm going to go for it. So I make the grips, and I forward roll, and in the backwards roll, it's very clear he's not creating enough space for me to get to side control, but I could go to 411. And so it was so cool to then just smoothly enter 411, be able to start to scoop up to attack his leg. And I think I hit it maybe one more time after that. And so that was just really fun. It's fun hitting something that is new and exciting and you feel kind of badass doing it. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. That's my other how's training going. Anything else that you'd like to share?
Not training, but competition. I hit Barada Plata.
Yeah.
I didn't know Barada Plata. Well, I knew that there was a thing, but I could not explain what it was. 10 days prior.
Nice.
Or not even 10 days. Like 8 days prior.
That's awesome.
And then 8 days later, I hit it in a live competition in the absolute Nogi, which is cool.
Pretty sick. Meanwhile, I feel like on some level, this is probably just my brain having a negative selection bias because I know I have successfully hit many Barada Platas over the last week since the seminar. But
yeah,
I feel
people are complaining about it.
I feel like I've gotten worse at that.
People are literally complaining about it.
They are?
Yes. So what are you talking about?
That's hilarious. And
now they're extra complaining because I'm doing them.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
I hit them all the time. Now I don't enter them from guard.
Yeah.
Because I'm not playing any guard. I refuse to play guard right now. I'm just wrestling people down and then
so funny.
With minimal success. And then working my passing and stuff like that.
Nice.
Because I said I was gonna work on top.
That's cool.
And like I'll probably still play some guard, especially if like I'm going against someone really tough or whatever. But I'm trying to, or like if someone gets me on the guard, like but even the other day, like someone like got me down, like kind of swept me, and I like push, got away, and I'm back up wrestling and stuff.
Nice.
Because I'm just having a little bit more urgency. But yeah, I'm hitting a Barada Plata from side control a lot. It's really
I need to
fun.
review that one.
It's sick.
Yeah, that actually
it works really well because my game is like I have a really good side control, and like people, and I can scoop the far arm and attack that, and then people kind of get like want to get out, so they come into you. And that's where you can start setting up darces, which I do have a really good darce. But then they're like, oh, I got to pull my arm back and protect myself. And so then that's when I hop into the Barada Plata. It's really nice.
Nice.
Thank you, Gialmio.
Yes, thank you. I think that actually leads really well into our topic question.
Yeah, baby. Okay. What are considerations for optimizing learning at a seminar versus a retreat versus a class?
Yeah.
So if I were to like take that as like one finite time frame versus a little bit longer versus ostensibly a
very
much longer
prolonged time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is something that I was also thinking a lot about in that on Friday I had a ladies meetup and I was using it also to practice some potential retreat curriculum. So I designed the curriculum for the ladies meetup, and when I taught it, in my mind it ended up being kind of, someone even said, oh, this felt like a seminar, and it was probably perfect seminar length. And one thing that I've been reflecting on is when we're teaching a retreat, we get to have a longer amount of time with people than a seminar. And ergo, each individual session, we don't have to treat like a seminar. We don't have to try to cram as much as we can or as much as we think each person can remember into an hour and a half or 2 hours. It's beneficial to have time for positionals, to have time for training, because it's an opportunity for these people who maybe don't get to train with, masters, world champions or whatever. So we get to train with them. And if we teach it like a seminar, then by the end of the session, people are pretty cooked. Most people, an hour and a half of pure technique learning and active drilling, that's a lot. That's a lot for me as well. At the end of the seminar, you're kind of like, my brain is fried and I'm really hoping to retain this. So I think that we can maybe we can break it up into, our suggestions on how our viewers can approach each thing, now that I've rambled for a little bit.
She keeps rambling and rambling.
Hey, I stopped, obviously. I cut myself off.
So I think I could see this from like two sides of the coin. It's like, as someone entering into and then like how we think about learning and setting up the right environment for learning. So I think I'll take the second one first. For a retreat, I try to think about one, no retreat no seminar, sorry, is the same. There'll be a lot of similarities, especially if like it's like, hey, we're doing
no
ankle
seminar
locks.
that you teach is the
that
same,
I teach,
or that
yeah,
okay,
that I teach is the same. Because even if I am doing like my core fundamental ankle lock, one, there's small changes and tweaks because I constantly try to think about and explore and experiment like ways of teaching. And then, oh, this seems like it resonated better. I'll also like take assessment of the class or the people that are attending and try to like gear towards those, whether it's like, hey, there are a lot more white blue belts, or I see people I've seen multiple times, whatever it might be. But generally speaking, I try to think of it as like, if someone were to walk away with one or two things, what would those be? And how am I going to make sure that they got those? And then there's a lot of other things where I'm planting the seeds and showing what can be. And also maybe here are like an entry or two, or a different position or a consideration that like someone might glom onto. Because I think that a lot of people like seminars, most of the time you're like at best you're like one or two things you're taking away and you're like, oh, I can integrate this, and then maybe I need to architect a mindful, purposeful pursuit of the other aspects to incorporate into my game, of the like the different positions and the different considerations and stuff. And so I think about like, hey, I want this as the main goal, and these other things as a buffet for like the people that like, oh, that really resonates with them. That really resonates with them because it's already close enough to their the game that they already have. But I really want this node. And so like often when I do ankle locks, I start because I'm known for ankle locks, so I do a lot of ankle lock seminars. I start at the end because I want the finishing mechanics to be taken away, or at least like a good amount of finishing mechanics and the grip considerations and whatnot. And so I focus on that. And then the other parts are like reactions to when they do this and entries for that and so on. And so like, I want one core thing that then they can like glom onto later on. But with the retreat, you have more time. And so that's like the end part of the blueprints, the end node of the blueprint that you're showing, or the beginning, a good entry. Or I think where like the Meow seminar was really good because he started with showing a Barada Plata from close guard. And then it was like a Barada Plata from K guard and a Barada Plata from side control and a couple other positions, but it was all like things to get to the Barada Plata. And so you're seeing the Barada Plata finish and you're doing the Barada Plata finish a bunch of times, but you're seeing these different things. And what was really cool was like, hey, a lot of those guards that to get to maybe the K guard and some of the other stuff, like I don't do some of those guards at much. And I didn't like right away get that, but from side control, it made total sense. And so I hopped right into it. With a retreat, you just have more time and you get to show more of the blueprint and more of the ways to get to these things. And so I think that you just have an opportunity to get spaced repetition integrated in. Now, I'm speaking about a retreat like where it's one, or in our case, we'll have two where we try to like marry it. Instructors that are showing multiple, that are doing multiple sessions. Because I do know that there's quite a few retreats that have their own allure and their own benefits and whatever, where it's like famous person, big tech competitor and stuff like that.
When you're looking at a retreat that has, 4+ different instructors, I would venture to guess that your expectations are that, hey, I might be learning very different things in each session, and I'm not expecting those various instructors to coordinate their curriculum very much.
They shouldn't really. Yeah,
like that's not what you're going there for, unless you're maybe saying like, hey, this is a leg lock week or something like that. That could be broad enough to have everyone cover those kinds of things. But we're trying to have some coherence throughout all of the sessions so that it's a little bit more sticky when people leave. Otherwise, if you're attending a seminar or one of these retreats with a lot of different things happening, I think there's a lot more onus on the student
Yeah.
to then say, okay, how am I going to now make this have more long lasting impact on
And
my
that doesn't
game
mean
if
you
I
don't,
want that.
yeah. And that doesn't mean you don't go to it, because
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot of networking. It's like really cool to see some. And it could be like, oh, you see 3 or 4 and like one really resonate and you spend, okay, I'm gonna spend my time on this, or like those couple, or you picked up a couple things, especially if you're a higher belt, you'll pick up a couple things from each of those and integrate those. And that's awesome. And like it has a lot of value and stuff like that to it. But
and you're probably just getting to say, hey, I get to go on vacation to somewhere cool and do a lot of jujitsu. It's guaranteed. I don't have to wonder about that. I get to, you know, have people who also like jujitsu around to hang out with if I want, cool. You know, like those things are all like, you know, big benefits.
Yeah, and it's like for our retreat, you know, coming up, and like when we, you know, hopefully we get to teach more and more retreats, but we'll be a little bit more focused on like the continuity and really building out a blueprint. Like when I did my, like one, I did a little bit too much. I did 5 sessions in a Friday, 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. It was a lot, but it was also gave me the ability to go broad and deep and integrate and do spaced repetition. I did a lot of testing and stuff like that. And so I think that like for me, if I were to be trying to look at a retreat, it's almost like you're taking the seminar, beefing it up, and taking the class of a long duration of time, and you're just distilling it down into a really concentrated, got to stay focused and get your caffeine and stuff like that. Make sure you're fed, but a really concentrated exposure. And I think it's a wonderful avenue, and I think it'll be really cool. The upcoming one, we'll see how we play off of each other, but
yeah,
I do think that it's nice. And then from like a class, it's like ideally you're sprinkling more, you're doing more positions than you're training. So hopefully you're trying to apply the thing, and then you're seeing it again, and then again, and then again, but with like these different flavors, different reactions. It all just kind of depends.
The class you get to trust, hey, depending on what kind of teacher you have or whatever, at least the way things are done at our gym, you can trust that you're going to get to see it again, you know? And so you don't have to worry too much about, as long as you're getting your reps in that day, even it'll give you time to roll, you know, it'll give you time to maybe fit it in at lunch or in the evening or whatever. Whereas, you know, the seminar or I think one of the challenges is that, especially with some seminars, you're only getting a small snapshot of the blueprint. And so because you're getting that snapshot, your ability to funnel to that game and really make it work can be challenging, especially if it doesn't already.
And that's what was really nice with the retreat is like I can give more of not only like how am I getting to their like entries, but like how am I building to this other. So I did ankle locks and knee bars and like a couple flavor and other things, but it's like the ankle locks, and when they react the knee bar or this entry, I have this split in the path. I can go to ankle lock or knee bar, and it opens a lot of optionality. Versus if you're just going over one, you run into roadblock. Okay, what now? Oh, this doesn't work as much.
Yeah,
and so you just have a lot more optionality to kind of you know, flow through.
One thing I feel like like we said, the Meow seminar was great. Like there was
I think you did a really good job.
Taken away, and in the last week, now that people, they know I'm going for Barada Plata, I'm doing it more, which is awesome because I have more entries, and I'm running into roadblocks where I'm like, man, I wish I'd been more aware of this problem because I would have asked him about it, you know? So, you know, and I'm just trying to source help where I can.
And that's like a nice part about like a class or even a retreat is like you hopefully.
If it's with the same coach for a retreat, then you get more opportunities to be like, okay, now I tried this in sparring and this is what I ran into.
But
and so
you know, it's like
helpful.
Yeah, totally. I think like, you know, if I were to, I've been to some retreats and I've taught quite a few. I think if we were like kind of switch to the other side of the coin and be like, hey, how do I approach attending retreats, and how do I like give advice on like attending retreats or seminars or class and stuff like that, as far as like optimizing your learning and stuff. I think one of the things, and hopefully you're able to assess this beforehand, is how close to your game is that thing already? Because like for me, like I was going because of you.
Yeah.
You know, like you forced me.
Yes.
And it's not like I don't like Meow. Like I have a lot of respect for like both of them. I think he's incredible. And I'm like, his game is a lot different than what I do generally. And so I was like, I'm not that interested in going. But I'm open and I'll go with you and stuff like that. And I was really happy that I was able to, especially like the side control broad applied. I was like, oh, that's something I can put right into my quiver, you know?
Sometimes stuff surprises you though. Like I remember we were up in Washington and we were dropping into Isla to like just do some training, and they happened to have a guest visitor who was leading the class, and he did a passing drill where you kind of slid your shin over the top of their quad or kind of across their IT band to come to side control. And at first I was like, I don't know about this. And then I started doing it, and now it actually works and I like it. And so it was funny where, that was just kind of unexpected, you know, and so those things, I think I really like what you're saying, where you can both say, hey, this part of this seminar or this retreat doesn't really fit into my game. I'm going to maybe give it a little bit less of my focus. You know, you don't need to strive to remember every single detail, but also you might be pleasantly surprised by some of the things.
Oh, totally. I think, you know, it's like you only have so much time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, maybe you are in Northern California and there only is like one or two people that come around the area. So you're like, I'm going to take that seminar because it's just new and different or whatever. And then other times like you're in LA or the Bay Area and like there's a bunch of people all the time. And so you can be a little bit more selective. So I think it's somewhat better to be selective into things like, oh, that's something I'm either interested in or it's a game that's close to mine.
Yeah.
And so I can really like, the chances of getting a hit rate are higher.
Yeah.
Now, I like your point in that you can still go, and if they're a good instructor, like you're going to have a chance to be pleasantly surprised. And I think the biggest thing is one, be open, because often those people are there for a reason. It's like people don't get brought in to teach seminars if they're not at least well known for being able to execute those things well. Now, can they teach it well? Who knows? That's a different story. But generally speaking, they have something to pass on. Whether they can do that well or not, that's up for.
And we have seen at some of these retreats where there's like 10 people. Some of them we look at the individuals, and there's a few where we're like, why are you included in this? You know, like, what are your credentials? So, you know, I don't know that everyone is like super qualified on some of these like big group retreats.
Well, I think the retreats are different. I'm talking about seminars.
Oh, you're talking about seminars. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. And so like within a seminar, I think that like generally speaking, if you're like, hey, especially nowadays, like you can get intel on like, hey, is it good?
Yeah.
Throw it up on Reddit. You know, like there might be like someone that's well known or whatever is coming in, and you can throw up, you know, a question for other people that have attended or Reddit or whatever, and be like, yeah, that was great, or that was okay, and make a decision based off of that and stuff. So I think, you know, one, try to align with your game or interest as an element, but not the only element. Go and be open and be ready to know that if you liked what you saw, you are going to have to develop a plan to be able to actually retain it.
Yes.
You know, it's like writing notes. If there's, you know, video, great. You know, whatever it is,
that's someone to drill it on.
That's the part.
And someone to drill it on.
And then you have to drill it. And then ideally also you have someone that also went there, you can drill together and troubleshoot. And like what you're saying, it's like, oh, now I'm running into some roadblocks. Now, hopefully you have someone at your gym that can like help you uncover, you know, the ways around the roadblocks. Where, so like you're generally only going to be getting 1 or 2, 3 things from most seminars out there. And it's like, try to identify the thing that you can put into and insert into your game right away. Because the other parts are generally like you're not going to be able to get all those things.
Yeah.
So for me with the broad applied, it's like, oh, side control, broad applied. now that I am doing the Barada Plata, like I'm going to get used to that mechanic. I'll probably find it from those other positions a little bit more, but they're not there right now for a couple different reasons.
Yep.
And with the retreat, you get to like, again, there are two types of retreats. I think, like, obviously I'm oversimplifying, but there's like the all-star roster, or a bunch of different people roster, not necessarily all stars apparently. And then there's like the more either single or a focus. You're going there because you're going to deep dive into something.
Yeah. You're
going over here because you want to network, you want a buffet.
Yeah.
You want to like say I took a seminar from, and that's awesome, get to, be in the vibes and stuff like that. From there, it's like, it's even more difficult, I think, in my mind, than going to one seminar, because now you have this.
That's what I'm kind of wondering about. Yeah.
This dump, like you're kind of like overloaded. It's just too much, I think. I think you can still go, totally have a lot of fun, but it's going to be harder.
I went to one, and I remember Hanette Stack was one of the teachers, and this is more like 2010s jiu-jitsu kind of people. And Lana Stefanak was one of the teachers, and there were a few others. And then the main thing, given I was a early blue belt back then, so this is a long time ago, but I remember the vibes and the hangout was probably the best part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like getting to chill with all these really cool ladies.
And that's like half the fun is like, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to elevate my game crazy and stuff like that necessarily. But I think you're going for the vibes, you're going for the experience, and you're going for the inspiration.
Yeah.
And like to get those one or two things, and maybe it's like 4 or 5 over like the course of it, and some inspiration and the planting of the seeds and whatnot. Whereas with a class, like you have the opportunity to like try some of it out, do your live rolls that can deviate. Maybe you're trying to incorporate a little bit, but you can have it a little bit slower.
Hopefully you always have your coach to say, hey, something's going wrong here. This is what it looks like. Do you have any suggestions? Kind of thing. And so
that's something that you do really well. That I don't do very well. Is like go ask questions of your coach. You know? Not overly burden them, but like and don't ask like this question. I appreciate why people ask me this, but like various iterations of like, oh, like anything I can do to improve, or like, any suggestions or whatever. And one, if I'm not pre-framed, it's a little bit hard to like then like try to remember the role and then like come up with like a quick like here's some suggestion type of thing. And it's like it's not directed. It's really hard to, unless there's something very glaring that they are doing just really bad. Like it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, you do this, whatever. But if they're like, hey, with that specific passing like why wasn't I able to recover, or whatever it is, and then I'm like, oh, like I usually can. It's also like when you're live rolling, I kind of just want to roll, but I'll like if I can give it quick,
ask it after, or if it can be quick.
After, yes. If anyone's rolling with me in round, if I can't answer in like 1 or 2 words, don't ask me that question until after we're done rolling, and then I'm happy to like explain or like be like, hey, can I ask you about that later? Great. And then we can do, because like I don't like disrupting rolls.
No.
That happened today, but it was fine because of the scenario. But like usually, no, like I'm rolling.
Yeah.
I want to train.
Yeah.
And then after, happy to like explain if I can or if I whatever. Which I did do today with someone else completely different. Like they didn't ask like, oh, do you have any tips? But they were asking about like not quite that broad, but it was like pretty broad. But I was doing the same thing over and over basically to him. And so I actually had a really good answer for him. And it was like, you could tell he's like really stoked on being able to get actionable items. But in general, what you do really well is you're like, I have a problem. I'm going to go when it's off, live rounds. And so I can ask, or after you'll ask, the coach, you're like, hey, here's my problem. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what where I'm successful. And here's like the challenge I'm running into. And so it allows, the coach to give you a very targeted answer if they know it, if they're like familiar enough or feel comfortable enough. And that's super helpful. And I think that that's one way, whether you're coming from a seminar and you're troubleshooting or you're trying to incorporate or retreat or even just regular class, or even outside of what's covered in classic for competition, you're working on your A game, coming to and taking agency into your development and like ironing out and troubleshooting with the help of someone that you trust, that's going to be able to give you good, important information is huge. It's really, really, they are your guides.
I think that if you as a student can develop a good ability to reflect on your rounds afterwards, not every time and not, with so much discipline that, it's annoying or something or feels like a chore, but if you can reflect on some of your rounds, because a lot of people, they roll and then they roll and they immediately forget about what happened. It's like once they're in their car listening to their music or they're checking their phone or whatever, they're done. But if you can reflect on your roll and try to recall where you were running into roadblocks and what was working and what wasn't working, then you'll be able to better articulate those future questions to your coach that are potentially things outside of class, or maybe they do have something to do with the material. But I think for me, that's one of what I would consider not literally my like a superpower, but I think it's something that I've worked a lot on, because early on in my training, it was pointed out to me that I remember hearing a story where someone went to Brazil with their friend, and they enjoyed the training and stuff, but their friend was really good at being personable and could just kind of get people to help him and show him techniques and things, and the other person wasn't, and they felt like their friend gained so much more from that trip. And I've tried to steal that method now, where by being curious instead of, say, hey, I get in my ego too, but by being curious about, oh, that person did something really well, can I steal it by being complimentary and by appreciating the coolness of jiu-jitsu? And I think that helps reveal a lot of techniques and just, and it will help. That's kind of a side note, I guess, of like observing. You're being aware of what's happening in the role. You're being aware of what you're doing and what the other person's doing. And so you might have opportunities to ask them very pointed questions, and you might have opportunities later to ask your coach questions. Of course, not during the role, because that's kind of lame, but, afterwards, or, as an aside or something like that.
I think the only, like, if I were to package that up for like, to make it a little bit more, like approachable for people, is like, after you roll, at least some of the time, think of one thing that you felt like went well, and so you can like reinforce that, and maybe one thing that you're like, oh, this posed a challenge, and can you drill that challenge out, or do you need to ask your coach to help you deal with that challenge? Like, hey, I had a really hard time dealing with this kind of grip configuration. What are some things I can think about? And so rather than trying to think about the all or whatever, it's like, just get one thing. And if you do that every couple times that you do live training, you're probably going to like speed up your learning very quickly.
I will say that I don't mind too much if someone asks me, hey, was there anything that I could do to improve? Because I'm kind of honored that they're asking me that question. I'm like,
I'm honored, but it's like, it's too hard for me to answer generally.
Yeah.
Because when I'm training, unless it's like, if someone were to ask before pre-frame, which they're never going to, or not never, but like
usually
rarely.
Same people though that ask.
That's true.
That's where I'm like, oh, I should start to remember. Oh yeah, this person's going to ask. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure, and they don't mind that or whatever. But
it's just usually it puts me on a spot where it's hard to be like, oh, like it's not like I'm like off put. It's just hard to answer.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like it'd be easier if you're like, give me a direction. I don't like very open-ended questions very often. It's like harder for me to answer those.
How do you feel about that? Sorry, I couldn't help myself. All right. I think we've answered this pretty well.
I think so.
So we talked a little bit last week about it kind of turned into things to look out for in terms of, wanting your child to train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And we thought we would kind of turn that question on the flip side a little bit to talk about what are some positive outcomes or just general good things that we've seen from kids and adults training jiu-jitsu. And of course, there's plenty of, jiu-jitsu propaganda out there for why it's great and whatever, but we'll try to weigh in on it, hopefully with a little bit of a fresh perspective. So David, is there anything that you have seen in particular?
I mean, yeah, there's tons of stuff. There's a lot of the propaganda-esque, I think that if I were to kind of extrapolate my own experience, not in jiu-jitsu, but wrestling, but also like seeing other people experience various degrees of this, I think one of the things that's really nice that martial arts in general, but I mean, any really hard venture in general can really have is like teaching grit, and teaching that you can get through difficult things and be okay. And jiu-jitsu is nice. A lot of sports and even like arts and whatever, it confines that difficult into a goal, into like whatever.
Yes.
And so you're doing a really hard thing, but it's not like you're just experiencing something really hard in life, which obviously a lot of people do, but you're manufacturing something where like not only are you doing something hard, but often and most of the time, hopefully on the other end, like you are better at that thing after the fact.
Yes.
And so I think what's good is like in the struggle, you build character and you learn grit, but also that, hopefully you're internalizing that it's like you can get better. Like, the saying is like you're the nail and then you become the hammer, and you're still the nail sometimes, but like you're more often the hammer. Or like, you can beat up the trial white belts after a while and whatnot. It's because like you get better at a thing, and it shows growth mindset in that like you aren't just an all-star at jiu-jitsu or any sport. You get better at it. You go through hard times and stuff like that. And so I think from jiu-jitsu in particular, it's like, especially from competition, I feel like even when people don't do very well and there's like this, negative from it, there's still like this, and which is what I like to highlight, is like, congrats, like you did a hard thing that not many people do. And so I think having that, like most regular humans haven't dealt with how difficult jiu-jitsu is in general, but like a competition is eye-opening. And so it's like, I've competed, like this minor inconvenience in life is nothing.
Yes.
For me, like wrestling was like, I've done things way harder than what is on my plate right now. And it's not always easy to like reflect on that, but if you do, it's like, this is easy in comparison. And so I think that's one really big and good takeaway that I have seen.
It is very interesting where jiu-jitsu isn't measurable like track is, where you can very much be calculating exactly how much improvement you're making, and they have computers that can track your running and optimize it for this is for more extreme athletes or whatever. But at the same time, there is an element of measurability in it, in the belt system, and like you're saying, how you do against the trial class person. Definitely it's a slow, but also kind of exponential growth, sort of, okay, I suck. Whoa, I'm actually kind of better. All right, no, I do still suck, but I am kind of better, and I'm beating these people that, years ago I would have been absolutely thrashed by them. And so I think that sort of vague measurability gives people something where they're able to keep going, and it's really cool to see and experience, where eventually if you have that ability to, again, reflect on your past self or how you were doing a year ago and the things that you can do now, that part is really cool.
That's the most important comparative.
Yes.
Right? It's like, it's really difficult to compare yourself to the others because they're also improving most
Yeah,
likely,
yeah.
you know? And so, and sometimes their learning curve is just faster than yours.
Someone
They go
said
more
that
often.
to me where I rolled with someone, another lady, and she was like, "Oh, I thought I was, you know, getting better at this thing, and then I come in and you kind of smashed me." And in my mind, I'm like, "Bro, like I am the wrong measuring stick for you in particular, you know? And if you measure yourself against yourself, you are improving. It's just that
That's the most
I'm
important
also
thing.
training." And so that's, you'll have people where you're both, you know, maybe your skill level is one person's a little higher, one person's a little bit lower, and you're both moving up at roughly the same time, or one person's moving a little faster.
That's the hardest part. Or someone's lower, they pass you.
Yeah, yeah. If you take, that's where
it's the hardest comparative is to say, like, what I like to remind people when they're first starting, because sometimes I'll like, oh, I just started jiu-jitsu. Like, do you have any advice? The only advice I give really with any amount of frequency is like, always try to, especially when you're like not feeling down, is be like, you know, you're 2 weeks in, you're 3 months in, or whatever. Just picture, you know, the first time you put on your gi, how badly you would beat the shit out of that person.
Yes.
And I say it with so like that much because it's like, it's true.
Yeah.
You know, maybe later on when you start aging or whatever, but for the first many years, there are very few stretches of time where you don't rewind, you would beat the shit out of that person.
Yeah.
And so like, that's the only comparative that matters is the 1% every day, whatever. Yes. But also it's like, think about previous you, not other people, because like you're saying, like they're getting better with you or faster than you. They're training 4 times a week and you're only training 2. There's so many other factors that are going into play. They just, you know, pick up things quicker, whatever it is. It's compare yourself to your previous self.
Yeah.
And if that looks good, then you're golden, you know, and that's hard.
Indeed. And I think one side benefit is that I feel like there's this thing that you see with a lot of upper belts where they go on to start to do other hobbies eventually, you know, when they maybe need to take breaks because of injuries, or they just, you know, they've done their training 10 times in a week or whatever. Now they can train like 4 times in a week, and they do other hobbies, and they use the way they've learned how to learn jiu-jitsu and apply it to that hobby. And it means, oh, this is how I measure myself. I know as long as I do these drills and as long as I practice, I can pick up this instrument or learn how to do, you know, this art skill kind of thing. And that part I think is a really cool benefit that people don't really mention, you know, because you're finally learning in a place where it is fun to learn if you enjoy jiu-jitsu, you know, versus all of your years in our forced wonderful education system. So I think that benefit is great.
I think that's something that you can really hone in on. The learning how to learn and like the art of learning is so powerful for jiu-jitsu, but for life. Like if you can learn how you learn, not just how to learn in general, because it's an individualized journey.
True too. Yes.
But there are a lot of things that are kind of more universal, but you still need to figure out how you learn best and apply that. And like, that's great. Like you have now went pretty far down, especially if you're like a black belt, you progressed for many years, whatever, you've gone down the path to mastery. You're not a master, but you're gone down the path to mastery. Along those ways is a great point, is you learn how to progress down the path to mastery.
You learn how to ask the right questions.
Yes.
You learn how to take notes so that you remember something later. You learn, hey, what do I, you
learn how you learn, and that, absolutely. And I think like for me, like earlier on, after college, in between when I was taking my break or whatever, like I spent a lot of time like learning how I learn and learning to learn, and that transcends so many different things. And when I did eventually stumble upon jiu-jitsu, you know, I had some wrestling experience, of course, but I also knew how I learn, and I have a lot of other like benefits to how my mind works, like quick processing power, and I'm a few shot learner. Like I can see things once or twice, and generally if it's within the realm of like stuff that I'm comfortable with, like I'll be able to start doing it right away. But it's like some of that is because I've created that, you know, like I do have a high processing power mentally, but you also can create that web of how you learn. And I think that you can speed that up and you can make it stronger, but you'll also just get it by doing something consistently, like you're saying.
Yes.
You know, and that's like very few people, unless you're kind of like a toad, like very few people are just not going to learn how to learn just by osmosis.
At least for themselves. Yeah.
You can improve that, but you could also, it's also just going to be a byproduct.
Yeah, totally. I think we should talk on a future episode about that. I think that would be interesting, like how you learned and what you learned about yourself in terms of like your learning optimization. So one story that I'll share that's a little more kid related in terms of the benefits of training is one of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu is that I feel like both it as an individual sport and it as a very technical sport is seeing kids who maybe have never flourished in a sport before of any kind. Maybe they've never even really participated in any sport, find it and find a lot of success, or maybe not even crazy success, but they enjoy it and they get to have a physical form of self-expression. That is probably one of my favorite parts, because it's easy to take a super athletic kid, put them in there, and you can say, oh, they're going to be really good. But taking a kid who, you know, maybe they're a little bit more on the math, arts, you know, intellectual side, and they're maybe not very physically coordinated, or maybe they have, you know, learning differences, or maybe not kind of that comfortable in their body, and seeing them start to get really good. And after, especially a year or two in, where they understand the systems and they use that learning mind to apply, oh, well, if I am focused, which I know how to do because I'm a strong learner, I'm maybe not strong physically, but I'm a strong mental learner, and I drill these techniques, oh, look, my body can do this. And now I can apply these strategies like a chess game in sparring. And, you know, if I use some things to keep my mind calm and all that kind of stuff, wow, I can actually do well. That is so cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. I think it's, you know, there's like that, the propaganda saying of like jujitsu is for everyone. That's just not true.
Yeah.
But it's for more people than a lot of other more mainstream sports.
Yes.
Especially at like, you know, like at adult level, at a kid level, in high school and stuff, like junior high, like pretty quickly, like it becomes really difficult to stay in sports unless like you really like it or you have like some skill in it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like hop on a football team if you're like kind of the wimpy kid, you know?
Yeah.
And so it is really cool to have that ability to, like you're saying, like find something that speaks to you. That's I think one other thing that I would highlight, and I think this is, you know, I think doing jujitsu for self-defense is a scam. I think it's
at least to some degree. The degree to which they say, hey, this is going to give you this level of guaranteed protection kind of thing.
I think self-defense seminars in particular are a scam. And I think that it's like, it will, if you train for a long period of time, it will be very beneficial for you in self-defense situations. But I think the nexus, the real core of that, and I say this to like, when women like ask me about training and they're like, oh, I'm thinking about training for self-defense and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, do it by all means, but just don't, like make sure you're going to a good program that's not trying to sell self-defense. Because like what that does is it gives a false sense of security with like, oh, I can defend myself in situations or whatever. Like my thoughts why jujitsu helps with that level of self-defense is the most important thing is that it allows you to stay calm in chaotic situations. That is the biggest benefit to jujitsu. And like there's obviously like the body awareness and some techniques to help or whatever, but just being able to stay calm in chaotic situations, you're going to be able to see more opportunities to disengage and get out of the situation, or mindfully call for help, or, you know, incapacitate your attacker or whatnot through using jujitsu and stuff like that or whatnot. But it all has to start with like, you are calm enough under that chaotic situation that you can be able to do the thing. And I think that that is a really strong benefit, because especially in open sparring, like it's pretty chaotic, especially when you're first starting, you're like, and you're like locking up and you're like, you know, like, and so I think that that's something that's really cool, where you start to like be able to be comfortable in this like kind of primal situation with confines and coaches and everything else like that to keep you guys relatively safe.
And the ability to tap
and like, and you start navigating that. And so I think like, you know, the calmness in chaotic situations is the benefit, like a really big benefit.
Yep. I will, you know, in that vein on self-defense, but you know, most of our viewers watching this probably already know this, but just to complement that, I will say that in terms of the various martial arts that you can do, where you can probably get some level of being calm even when you're getting, you know, hit in the face or something to that effect, the fact that jiu-jitsu can teach a kid how to put someone on the ground and hold them and say, you know, I'm done fighting and I'm, you know, holding you here until a teacher arrives, or an adult, that part is crazy. Like that's so powerful.
It's very powerful. You know? It's empowering. You know, there's like they're also like the confidence and the self-assuredness, of course.
Yes, sure. Of course.
I think, you know, it's, and except for psychos, like generally speaking, the more you train, especially like jiu-jitsu or something where like you will get humbled, I get humbled. You know, it's like it's good for you. You're like, and so oftentimes some of the gentlest people are trained killers.
Yeah.
You know, and like I don't have to prove myself, but I can feel confident. And often that confidence being exuded means like people aren't messing with you. And so there is some level of that. Like it's an anti-bullying technique, but like not even having to do anything besides like be in your body, but you're more comfortable in your body.
Yes.
Because I have shown that I can do a thing, you know? And I don't think like I go into a room that I could beat up everyone. But there's this level of like, I don't need to go into a room and feel uncomfortable in that domain.
Yes.
And so I think that's really a good benefit as well. Totally.
We had a student who came back for a little bit from the winter break. This is a kid. And one of the coaches kind of pointed out, wow, that kid has kind of a cocky attitude, you know, like they have kind of an ego. And I said, oh yeah, you know, I can see, yes, definitely. And we put them with one of these more quiet sort of, you know, kids who normally you wouldn't have thought that they would be very good at sports, and who has made incredible strides in their jiu-jitsu and their grappling. And the ego kid got absolutely dominated to the point where he was upset, and I saw the moment that the kid got upset and start to kind of try to like throw a punch or something like that. And whoa, I came over, and when I did that, the kid immediately started crying, you know, and I was like, okay, hey, you know, what's happening here? And he was upset because the kid who was on top had been doing a very successful choke. And he said, oh, the choke, you know, it was hurting my neck. And I'm like, well, buddy, you can tap, you know, it's okay. And he was, you know, he kind of shut down, and then he showed up again today, which was good. That was the main thing. And so, you know, now, and you can still see, you know, the ego or whatever happening. And what I say to the other coach is, I'm like, because the other coach is like, oh, I don't really like that kid. And I say, you know, I feel you. And we can just remember that that's coming from insecurity. You know, this kid is probably insecure about something, and that's why he's protecting himself with this, you know, big attitude or whatever. And, you know, maybe some Marin entitlement or whatever. But besides that, hey, this is our chance to slowly, hey, we'll make sure that he has a round that's positive, you know, where he's having fun, and he'll have a round where he gets humbled, you know, and we'll keep exposing him to that. And that way you keep getting that reminder of, you are not the big dog.
There are bigger fish in the sea. And I think that
and keeping that, hey, you're getting humbled, but you're not worried about getting hurt, you know? And so keeping it still with kids that make themselves likable and who will exert control, and I can say, hey, just tone it down a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very cool to see both those, that it can, you know, I don't think you need to have kids have the full beat down during class. I don't like to go that extreme,
No.
because you want them to, otherwise they might not come back, and then
Yeah,
you lose the opportunity to work with them and to give
there's
them that
ways to like
perspective. Yes.
to give small doses of that. I think one last thing on my end, I think that, and this is influenced by a recent podcast episode from Aegis Warrior Lab, when he was interviewing Melissa Will, which is John Will's wife. And which was a really good episode. I enjoyed it. And one of the things that she was mentioning in that her gym is like, they don't really deal with people that come in and just want to smash and whatnot. They want people to come in that are like they're for other people, because other people are going to be for you. And so like there's this level of like, we're all like, all boats rise with the coming tide. And like, of course, you know, I don't take it to that degree, because I think there is a little bit of selfishness or self-interest that you should take into your own training, and like when you need to, like, especially right before a competition, it's like, I need to sharpen up my own, whatever. But in general, it's about training hard and well, but also safely, and imparting the bits of wisdom or helping out here and there and giving back to the community. And like, everyone's on the same team. We're all here trying to improve in this silly little sport where we're just like getting in pajamas and rolling around on the ground with each other.
If Sally gets better,
she's a better partner for me.
I'm gonna have better training partners who give me better looks and all those things. And so we do.
Everyone benefits from caring about other people, and it's like what you should do anyway. But it's also like, even if you are wanting to be self-interested, like helping other people improve will improve your training partners, and that's going to help you improve. And so it's like it's a virtuous cycle.
Yep. And I think that balance, you know, this is a little off topic, is really nice, where I try to say, hey, I'm going to get some rounds that, you know, for me, maybe I need a little bit of break. They're a little bit lighter, and they're more me working with the other person versus, oh, I'm going to pick that person where, you know, we really get to butt heads, and that's a lot of fun, and I'm trying hard to win, and they might be doing that for me, where they're actually kind of letting me work, or we're just, you know, and that's nice. So, you know, I think getting the mix.
What do you like?
I'm glad you enjoyed that.
So, all right.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we can go on and on about like the positives and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there's also positives from like competing and that kind of stuff, which, you know, we've talked about a little bit, and we'll probably talk about more in our like competition series episodes when we actually do those. But I think, you know, that's even, you know, assuming that you're watching this, like, you're probably trained jiu-jitsu. So it's the additional thing is like, you have something to share with your little spawn.
Yes.
You know, and that's fun. That's cool. You know, especially if you can be excited. Like, you do a really good job of this, of like, oh, like when the kiddo like does a cool double, you're like, oh yeah, you get excited. And that like probably feeds her a lot. And like, and that's a cool thing that you guys can share together. And that's another like benefit, I think, from, you know, kids doing jiu-jitsu, you know, in this situation.
When your adult is doing as well. I did have one other thing that I'd been thinking about. I'll keep it really short. Where one thing that I was thinking about recently is, especially for some kids, you know, or teens or whatever, their abilities in the modern education system might not be great. You know, they might not flourish in that environment. And getting to know some kids and teens and adults where they're so good at jiu-jitsu, and you see their IQ in how they move their body and how fast they learn. You know, seeing this one kid execute just a fantastic, like a textbook finish to a single leg, where I rarely see anyone just run the pipe. Oh, so good. And it really gives you, oh, it's really cool that this person gets to have a place where they can shine.
Yep.
That's really
Totally.
enjoyable.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's way in whatever, you know, music, school, arts, you know, finding a place where you get to shine and you get to show a skill is really awesome. So, and I see jiu-jitsu giving that to some people who can really speak language with their body, and that's awesome.
Yeah, totally. Closing out this wonderful episode.
Closing out.
If you're still here, thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Hopefully you're enjoying it enough, or you're doing your dishes. Scrub that harder.
It's more like they're doing their laundry, which never ends if they are listening to this at this point.
Well, maybe they're doing their laundry earlier, and this has gone so long that now they're doing the dishes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We would love to hear. We talked a little bit about kind of optimizing your learning on seminars versus retreats versus, you know, the more regular day-to-day of the classroom. And we would love to hear what your experiences have been like at different seminars and retreats, and how you feel like, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah.
What instructors have brought, and what, you know, where do you feel like you've been able to retain the most, if that's what you were seeking from whatever event you attended. So
yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Like what worked well, what didn't, what do you think, like what would you like to see in a retreat or a seminar that would be awesome?
Yeah.
The other call to action I'll have on this is if you have any stories, whether you as an adult or as a parent of a child or whatnot, where you've seen like positive outcomes from jiu-jitsu, like whether it be like a behavioral thing over time or like a specific moment that just really like was really cool and that you want to share. I love hearing those kinds of things. So please send them out our way. Have a wonderful day wherever and whenever you are listening to this, and send out comments and ask questions, and, you know, bug all your friends to watch too, because we're the next big thing in jiu-jitsu podcasts. So like and subscribe.
Yes. Enjoy. We'll see you next time on Jiu-Jitsu Ponderings. Meow.